Last August, American cities erupted in protest after Michael Brown, just 18 years old, was killed by a white police officer in Ferguson, Missouri. For the first time in decades, there's a national discussion about how just our criminal justice system is. Police shooting and prison reform are finally topics at presidential debates. What gets little attention is what we're doing to our youngest citizens, our children. The U.S. locks up more children than any other developed country by far. It's time we talked about this. In the documentary you're about to see, Prison Kids, you'll meet young people whose lives were torn apart by our juvenile justice system. Kids who needed help, but instead were locked up. And you'll meet those fighting every day to turn it around, to stop the criminalization of childhood in America. If a society is judged by how it cares for its most vulnerable citizens, are we ready for Judgment Day?
I hate being inside the cell.
You got your little window to look outside, and that's really it. I feel claustrophobic.
It was cold too. I was freezing.
And I be getting overwhelmed and heated about it.
I was fed up, like I'm tired of being in the cell.
Oh, they were horrible. Worst time of my life.
It was nerve-wracking.
I was hallucinating.
I was freaked out.
Yeah, I was young. I was young in there.
Come on, get up. I worry a lot that he'll end up in jail. It's so easy to end up in jail here, and for whatever reason. Come on, baby. I wanna go to school. Come on.
Aisha's son Zion is 7 years old.
Open. If he gets into an altercation or he does something that they think is punishable, definitely. I worry a lot. Zion, are you gonna behave today? Yeah. You gonna do all your work?
Okay.
You promise me?
Yeah.
Please, you have to learn.
Zion lives in Broward County, Florida. School has never been easy for him.
A referral is when you get written up and it goes in your permanent record. I think right now Zion has over 40, definitely. In 1 year, he had over 25. And I think that was in first grade. He kept getting suspended. One day here, one day there. I had to leave my work 2-3 times a week.
Zion struggles with ADHD and anxiety, which makes it hard for him to sit through a full school day.
What would happen when you got in trouble?
It'll be bad, and it'll be hard to calm me down.
How did that make you feel?
Frustrated and bad.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at his file right now. There's so many. I mean, I'm going through this and I just don't even know where to start because there's just so many. Behavioral concerns may result in exclusion from participation in activities, unruly play. This one was the big one, battery on a district employee. He just had a major anxiety attack. He threw his desk. He threw everything he can find, books, whatever. He was uncontrollable. He was crying and crying. The teacher went to try to hold him down, and she got kicked. They called me. They said, the police is here. You need to come right away. Again, the police officer said, look, I don't know if the teacher wants to press charges. I mean, she could because she's on her right to press charges. I felt like, okay, what are they gonna do? Is he gonna go to jail? He's gonna, go to juvenile? They're gonna handcuff him. I mean, he's 7, he's a baby, he's my baby.
At 7 years old, Zion could legally be arrested for battery in Florida. It's one of 33 states where there is no minimum age to charge a child with a crime. The U.S. incarcerates more children than any other developed country, 54,000 on any given night. Americans pay about $8 billion a year to incarcerate kids, but that's only part of the cost.
You can do what we've asked you to. Work yourself to the consequences.
In the last year, we've seen small glimpses of what some call the criminalization of childhood, the handcuffing of a 3rd grader in a Kentucky classroom, the suicide of Khalif Browder, who was featured in The New Yorker. At 16, he was sent to jail for 3 years without ever being convicted of a crime. The violent confrontation between police and teenagers at a neighborhood pool party in Texas. To many Americans, it's shocking, but it's a system we created, and it's destroying lives.
We can really mess a kid up. We can create a problem that did not exist, and then we turn them loose. We've, in essence, created a criminal.
The vast majority of kids in juvenile jail don't commit a violent crime. In fact, many are locked up for things that aren't even crimes for adults. Skipping school, running away from home, or missing curfew. Even those accused of more serious crimes are still children.
I could never imagine my life if I haven't been incarcerated as a kid.
Savannah first went to juvenile prison in Ohio when she was 14.
Yeah, I was young. I was young in there. And I really grew up in there.
This is her in 2009.
I definitely feel sad about missing out on like school games, stuff like that. You know, being able to create memories for like my family. Like my mom tell me sometimes like I robbed her the chance of raising me.
Ohio's juvenile prisons, run by the Department of Youth Services, were some of the bleakest places to be a kid locked up in America.
I saw like a lot of girls cut in and trying to commit suicide, and very, very depressed girls and stuff like that in there. That was something I had never, experienced before.
Savannah's experience can be traced to what was happening in the country when she was just an infant.
In California, 3 children, all under the age of 10, were arrested this week after the near-fatal beating of an infant.
In Chicago, a 10 and 11-year-old drop a 5-year-old from a high-rise to his death. Another 14-year-old arrested for gang rape.
In the mid-90s, America became terrified of a new brand of child criminal.
Super predators come in every race, creed, and zip code. They have literally no concept of the future, either their own or anyone else's.
Today, they're just children, but will they be predators tomorrow?
The country went into a panic, and lawmakers responded with what seemed like a simple solution: lock them up.
There are no violent offenses that are juvenile. You rape somebody, you're an adult. You shoot somebody, you're an adult.
I'm directing the FBI and other investigative agencies to target gangs that involve juveniles in violent crime, and to seek authority to prosecute as adults teenagers who maim and kill like adults.
The number of kids locked up in America peaked in the year 2000, hitting 109,000 kids.
We can expect a crime wave of juvenile violence over the next 10 years.
But the predictions were wrong. There were no super predators. In fact, juvenile violent crime rates dropped, and the number of kids in juvenile facilities went down too. Still, the U.S. incarcerates children at a higher rate than anyone else. Those kids are usually black or brown. Most struggle with mental illness.
It tickles anyways.
This weighs on Zion's mom, Aisha.
That fear is still in me, that he'll, be arrested, that he won't finish school.
Look at this. Nothing.
When you're a mom, you're so ambitious towards your kid. You want them to be better than you were. That's all I ask. But I'm scared.
Savannah is 22 years old. She lives in Columbus, Ohio.
I started to get in trouble like around the age of like 12.
Sheesh.
I really didn't like being at home that much. I had a lot of responsibilities. My mom worked a lot. She was a single mom. So it was better to be worried about myself and be on my own.
At 14, Savannah was locked up in one of Ohio's juvenile prisons, run by the Department of Youth Services, or DYS.
But I never fought as much till I got to DYS. I never really had conflicts with other people in school that much. I got into fights here and there, but not as much. Sometimes, like, I get anxiety, and that would be a way of releasing it. Like, I would just throw stuff or yell or do something, and that would carry on to something else, and then lead to a fight.
When Savannah fought, she says she was placed in solitary confinement, 23 hours straight in a cell. If she followed the rules, Savannah could earn time outside. Some consider solitary confinement torture. The state called it a special management plan meant to make her a better inmate. Instead of helping, Savannah says it made her worse.
And sometimes I would work the plan, and then maybe something might upset me or something, and I'll just ruin the whole thing. The isolation kind of sometimes made me feel crazy. To be in a cell for 23 hours is definitely, they be like, count bricks. It's not really too much you can do. I remember one time somebody snuck me a marker. I drew on every inch of my wall, like every inch of my wall was covered with something. It kind of tests your mental state at sometimes. Like you might find yourself talking to yourself or something. Just trying to pass time or anything, find anything to do in there.
Once a prisoner gets into solitary confinement, usually because of impulsive, emotionally volatile kind of behavior, once they get in, they get worse, and then they never get out. And that's what happens to a lot of these kids.
Dr. Stuart Gratian has studied the impact of solitary confinement on inmates for 3 decades.
Instead of understanding what was going on with these kids, they were punished. They were put in solitary confinement. And from everything we know from work with adults and with juveniles, putting these people in solitary confinement is going to make them worse.
Gratian examined files of several kids held in solitary confinement in Ohio juvenile prisons. He found all had mental health issues.
But if you're caught, you're arrested.
The juvenile justice system was created more than 100 years ago with the idea that kids aren't fully developed and they have the potential to change if they're given the opportunity.
I don't believe you're really a bad boy, and I'm not going to send you away this time.
The purpose of the adult system was to punish the offender. In juvenile, the objective in the statute is to rehabilitate the child or to turn the child around. And I'll be the first to tell you, it's a lot easier to punish a person than to try and turn a child around.
Just like in other parts of the country, there was more punishment than rehabilitation in Ohio.
Sadly, what develops in places like this is a very kind of cynical, kind of cruel attitude towards the kids.
In 2011, the year Allen got arrested, kids in Ohio juvenile prisons spent 229,000 hours in isolation. That's an average of 306 hours per kid that year.
Engage in practices in prisons and jails that actually make people far more dangerous.
U.S. Senator Cory Booker has introduced legislation that would ban the use of solitary confinement for juveniles.
We routinely in this country put children in solitary confinement, which has a traumatizing impact on that child's emotional and mental health. In fact, 60% of the kids that are committing suicide in prisons are ones that have been put into solitary confinement. Other countries consider the practice torture, but we do it with regularity.